64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck right now. Stop for a second and think about that. This isn't just a statistic, it's likely you or someone sitting next to you at work. The middle class is trapped in a system designed to keep you financially shackled. In the next 15 minutes, I'll reveal the 7 invisible barriers keeping you financially stuck. Barriers that took me 10 years of research to identify. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your bank account never seems to grow, despite how hard you work. Stay with me, because the 5th barrier shocked even financial experts. The ADDIE Framework, your escape plan from financial captivity. Ever wonder why most financial advice just doesn't stick? You try the budgeting apps, read the money books, maybe even cut out that daily coffee. But somehow, you're still stuck in the same financial position. That's because you've been collecting random tips instead of following a complete system. Financial freedom isn't about knowing a bunch of disconnected hacks. It's about having a framework that addresses the actual systemic traps keeping you financially shackled. That's why today I'm introducing you to the ADDIE Framework, the escape plan that's going to break your financial chains once and for all. ADDIE stands for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate. It's a proven instructional design framework that's typically used in education, but I've adapted it specifically to dismantle the financial barriers holding you back. Each step builds on the previous one, creating a comprehensive approach to your financial liberation. Let's start with Analyze. This is where we identify the specific financial chains binding you. We don't just say, you need to save more, like most generic advice. Instead, we dig into the hard data behind each barrier, like why the average American savings rate is stuck at just 5.4%, or why 64% of people are living paycheck to paycheck despite working full-time jobs. We expose the hidden mechanisms designed to keep you financially contained. The design phase is where we create your custom escape plan. Once we know exactly which financial chains are holding you back, we map out the precise sequence to break them. This is crucial because tackling these barriers in the wrong order can actually set you back further. For example, aggressively paying down low-interest student loans while carrying high-interest credit card debt is a mathematically losing strategy. Yet financial gurus rarely mention this optimization problem. In the develop stage, we build the specific tools and strategies you'll need for each barrier. Generic advice like start investing isn't enough when 39% of Americans avoid the stock market entirely. You need concrete steps that address both the practical and psychological aspects of each financial barrier. We'll develop automation systems, psychological triggers, and decision frameworks tailored to your situation. The implementation phase is where most financial advice completely fails. It's not enough to know what to do. You need a structured approach to actually doing it. We'll break down exactly how to implement each strategy with minimal time and effort, focusing on the minimum effective dose that gives you maximum results. This includes specific scripts, templates, and action plans you can follow even when motivation is low. Finally, the evaluate phase closes the loop. You'll learn how to measure your progress, adjust your approach based on results, and constantly optimize your financial system. This prevents you from getting stuck in financial strategies that worked once but are no longer serving you. Now, you might be thinking this sounds complicated, but that's actually the beauty of the ADDIE Framework. It simplifies the complex world of personal finance into a clear, step-by-step system anyone can follow. Take Sarah, for example. She was a marketing specialist making $58,000 a year, but still living paycheck to paycheck with $12,000 in credit card debt. Even though she understood she needed to save and invest, she couldn't seem to make progress. When Sarah applied the ADDIE Framework, she first analyzed her specific barriers and discovered that her primary chain wasn't actually her spending habits. It was her complete dependence on a single income source. This insight shifted her entire approach. Instead of just cutting expenses, which had limited impact, she designed a plan to create a second income stream through freelance work. Within 6 months, she had developed a side business that generated an additional $1,500 monthly, implemented automated saving systems, and evaluated her progress to refine her approach. The result? Sarah eliminated her credit card debt in 14 months and built a 3-month emergency fund, breaking free from the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle that had trapped her for years. But here's what's really fascinating. Once Sarah broke that first chain of income dependency, the other barriers became easier to tackle. She experienced what I call the financial freedom domino effect. This domino effect is powerful. Breaking one financial chain gives you resources, confidence, and momentum to tackle the next one. For instance, once you escape the credit card debt trap, you suddenly have hundreds of dollars each month to direct toward building investments. Once you've built multiple income streams, you have protection against job loss that allows you to make bolder career moves. Each victory creates leverage for the next one. Traditional financial advice fails because it treats each financial problem in isolation, ignoring how they're connected in this complex system designed to keep middle-class Americans financially contained. Think about it. Why do 66% of Americans struggle with basic financial literacy? Is it because we're not smart enough? Of course not. It's because financial education has been systematically removed from schools, while financial products have become increasingly complex. That's not an accident, it's by design. When you approach these barriers with the ADDIE Framework, you're not just applying random tips. You're systematically dismantling the mechanisms designed to keep you financially stuck. You're addressing both the mathematical reality, the numbers, and the psychological barriers, the mindset, that preserve these chains. In the coming sections, we'll walk through the analysis phase for each of the 7 major financial barriers holding back middle-class Americans. We'll examine the hard data, expose the systemic traps, and begin building your personalized escape plan. For each barrier, you'll learn both why it exists and exactly how to break free from it. The beauty of a systematic approach is that it works regardless of your current financial situation. Whether you're struggling with massive student loans, trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, or simply not making the progress you want, the ADDIE Framework gives you a clear path forward. It transforms overwhelming financial challenges into a series of manageable steps. Barrier number 1. The consumption trap. Why your savings rate is only 5.4%. Looking at our financial system through a different lens reveals something truly eye-opening. With the framework we've explored in mind, it's time to confront our first financial shackle, one that's hiding in plain sight. The typical American's personal savings rate tells a troubling story about our financial priorities, and it's a mathematical recipe for extended financial captivity. Let's look at some hard data. Historically, Americans have saved an average of 8.47% of their income since 1959, with dramatic fluctuations along the way, including a remarkable spike to 32% during the early pandemic months of 2020. But these numbers reveal something critical. Our saving behavior isn't fixed. It responds dramatically to economic conditions, and more importantly, to our mindset about money. So why do most people find it so challenging to save more? The answer isn't simply a lack of income. It's the consumption-first paradigm that's been systematically engineered into our culture. Think about it. We're conditioned to pay everyone else first: landlords, credit card companies, subscription services, retailers, while our future selves get whatever happens to be left over. Mathematically speaking, this approach is completely backward. This consumption-first mindset didn't happen by accident. Marketing strategies specifically target middle-class consumers with carefully crafted messages designed to create urgency and desire around spending. Every day, you're exposed to thousands of messages telling you to buy now, while virtually none remind you to save for tomorrow. The result is a psychological environment where spending feels normal and natural, while saving feels like punishment or deprivation. The math here is unforgiving. A 5 to 6% savings rate mathematically guarantees decades of work before financial independence becomes possible. Even with consistent investing, this low savings percentage extends your required working years far beyond what most people anticipate. When you run the numbers on compound growth, the difference between saving at this rate versus aiming for 15 to 20% creates a wealth gap of hundreds of thousands, or even millions, over your lifetime. To visualize this difference, imagine 2 people starting with identical $50,000 salaries at age 25. The first saves just 5%, $2,500 annually, while the second saves 20%, $10,000 annually. Assuming a conservative 7% annual return, after 30 years, the difference is staggering. The 5% saver accumulates roughly $250,000, while the 20% saver builds over $1 million. That's not just a numerical difference. It represents an entirely different life trajectory and set of possibilities. What makes this situation even more frustrating is that it's not about making dramatic sacrifices. Research shows that consumption, smoothing, maintaining a stable lifestyle while gradually increasing savings, actually produces better long-term satisfaction than the cycle of overspending followed by harsh cutbacks that many people attempt. The key is creating a system that prioritizes saving before the money hits your checking account. This is where the pay-yourself-first strategy becomes transformative. Instead of treating savings as an afterthought, you position it as a non-negotiable expense, the first money that comes out of your paycheck, not the last. When you structure your finances this way, something remarkable happens. You adapt your lifestyle to what remains available, rather than constantly draining your account and hoping something is left for savings. The psychological barriers to saving are powerful, but they can be bypassed almost entirely through automation. When savings happen automatically, through direct deposit splitting, automatic transfers, or retirement account contributions, you remove the psychological friction that makes saving feel difficult. You're essentially making the default option work in your favor rather than against it. For example, you might split your direct deposit, so 15% goes straight to a separate high-yield savings account at a different bank, making it slightly less convenient to access. Or you could increase your 401k contribution by just 1% every 3 months. A change so small you'll barely notice it in your paycheck, but one that compounds dramatically over time. The true power of automation is that it works regardless of willpower or discipline. Even on your worst day, when you're stressed, tired, or tempted to spend, your automated system continues building your financial future without requiring any decision-making energy from you. What's particularly interesting about saving is that the psychological burden often diminishes once the habit is established. Many people who successfully increase their savings rate report that after an initial adjustment period of about 60 to 90 days, they no longer feel deprived. Their lifestyle adjusts, and the higher savings rate becomes their new normal, but with significantly better long-term outcomes. Consider implementing a 72-hour rule for any non-essential purchase over a certain amount. This simple waiting period creates space between impulse and action, allowing you to evaluate whether the purchase aligns with your true priorities. Often, you'll find the desire fades significantly during this waiting period. Another approach is creating separate savings buckets for specific goals: an emergency fund, a vacation fund, a down payment fund. Research shows that this mental accounting significantly increases saving behavior because it connects the abstract concept of saving to concrete outcomes that matter to you personally. The societal pressure to consume is real and powerful. We're surrounded by friends, family members, and colleagues who are themselves caught in the consumption trap, often reinforcing the same patterns in our own lives. Breaking free requires both awareness of these influences and intentional strategies to counter them. Try conducting a financial audit of where your money actually went last month, not where you think it went. Many people are shocked to discover the gap between their perception and reality. Categories like dining out, subscriptions, and small impulse purchases often add up to far more than estimated. This awareness creates a powerful foundation for change. You might also experiment with a spending fast, a defined period where you commit to spending only on true necessities. Even a one-week experiment can reset your relationship with consumption and highlight how many purchases are driven by habit rather than genuine need or desire. Barrier number 2, salary dependency, the 64% paycheck-to-paycheck prison. After experimenting with a spending fast, you might feel good about your new savings habits. But let's talk about something equally important that most financial advice completely overlooks. What if your paycheck suddenly disappeared tomorrow? For 46% of Americans, this isn't just an uncomfortable thought experiment. It's a financial nightmare waiting to happen since they lack enough emergency savings to cover even 3 months of expenses. This isn't just about being bad with money. I've seen financially responsible people who budget carefully, avoid unnecessary purchases, and even maintain decent savings habits, find themselves in serious trouble when their primary income source vanished. The math is clear. Relying on a single income stream is like walking a financial tightrope without a safety net. Take the case of a teacher in Virginia who did everything right financially. She budgeted carefully, lived below her means, and contributed to her retirement. But when unexpected medical bills hit at the same time her husband was temporarily laid off, they found themselves drowning in $20,000 of credit card debt. The solution wasn't just cutting back expenses. It was adding income streams through tutoring and leveraging gig economy opportunities. There's a psychological comfort that comes with a steady paycheck. It feels secure. It's predictable. But this security is actually an illusion when you look at the mathematics of financial stability. The truth is, most Americans are just one job loss away from serious financial hardship. Let's break down the harsh math. According to a Bankrate report, 66% of U.S. adults would be worried about covering just 1 month of expenses if they lost their primary income source. Not 1 year, 1 month. This isn't sustainable financial planning. It's a crisis waiting to happen. Here's what most people don't realize. The amount of emergency savings you need varies dramatically based on your fixed expenses. If your necessary monthly costs, housing, utilities, food, transportation, insurance, minimum debt payments, total $4,000, you need at least $12,000 in liquid emergency savings to weather a 3-month income disruption. For a family with $6,000 in monthly expenses, that jumps to $18,000. Yet according to the research, more than a third of U.S. adults have more credit card debt than emergency savings, the highest percentage since 2011. This emergency savings gap isn't distributed equally either. For households earning less than $50,000 annually, 42% report having more credit card debt than emergency savings. Compare that to households earning $100,000 or more, where only 21% face the same situation. This stark income disparity in financial security shows how vulnerable lower and middle-income households are to income disruptions. So what's the solution? Income diversification, having multiple streams of money flowing into your life instead of just relying on that single employer. Financial experts now suggest that the middle class should aim for 3 to 7 income streams as the new requirement for true financial stability. Think about it like this. If you have 7 different sources of income and lose one, you've only lost about 14% of your total income. Annoying, but not catastrophic. Lose your only income source, and you're at 0%, a financial emergency. The good news is that you can build these additional income streams systematically, starting with just 5 hours per week. Here's what a progression ladder might look like. Start with active side income. This could be freelancing in your current professional skills, tutoring, consulting, or picking up gig work through platforms that match your abilities. This gives you immediate cash flow while you build toward more passive options. Next, develop semi-passive income sources. These might require significant upfront effort, but less ongoing time. Think creating digital products, establishing a small rental property, or building a small e-commerce business with automated systems. The final level is truly passive income, dividend-paying investments, royalty income from created content, or well-established rental properties with property management. These income streams continue whether you're actively working or not. The key is starting small. The 10% rule is particularly effective here. Aim to build alternative income streams that equal 10% of your salary. Once you hit that milestone, set a new goal for 20%, and so on. This approach allows you to reduce salary dependency gradually without the terrifying prospect of quitting your job outright. Let's put this into practice. If you earn $50,000 annually, your first goal would be generating an additional $5,000 per year, or about $417 per month. That might sound like a lot, but broken down further, it's about $96 per week. Working 5 hours weekly at $20 per hour immediately puts you on track. As you gain experience and efficiency, those same 5 hours might generate $30 or $40 per hour, rapidly accelerating your progress. Remember that teacher in Virginia? By applying exactly this approach, starting with just 5 hours per week of additional work, she not only paid off her $20,000 credit card debt, but built sufficient emergency savings to weather future financial storms. Her story isn't unique, it's repeatable. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require you to make dramatic life changes overnight. You're not quitting your job to follow your passion or taking irresponsible risks. You're systematically building resilience into your financial life through diversification. And here's something most people miss. Income diversification isn't just about financial security. It often leads to discovering new opportunities you enjoy more than your primary job. Many people find that their side hustle eventually becomes their main focus, not because they planned it that way, but because it aligned better with their skills and interests. Let's also address a common misconception. Income diversification isn't just for entrepreneurial personalities. If you're more risk-averse or prefer structure, you can still apply these principles. A second part-time job, an adjunct teaching position, or freelance work in your current profession all count as additional income streams without requiring you to become the next startup founder. The financial industry has trained us to focus almost exclusively on cutting expenses and saving more. Those habits are important, but they only address half the equation. Without addressing your income strategy, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to the single point of failure that threatens 66% of Americans: total dependency on one paycheck. So here's your action plan. Identify your skills and interests that have market value. Start with just 5 hours per week dedicated to building a second income stream. Track your progress toward that initial 10% goal. As you build confidence in systems, gradually expand your additional income sources until no single income stream, including your barrier number 3, the credit illusion, escaping the $6,193 debt trap. What if I told you that the convenience in your pocket is actually a wealth-destroying machine engineered to make you feel financially empowered while doing the exact opposite? At current interest rates of 22.63%, the average American's credit card debt of $6,193 transforms into a financial monster that devours your wealth faster than most people realize. Now that you've started building multiple income streams, it's time to address what's silently eating those extra dollars before they can build your wealth. Credit card debt reached a staggering $1.21 trillion in the U.S. in 2024. That's not just a number, it's a national financial emergency happening one swipe at a time. Let's get real about what this means for your wallet. If you're carrying that average balance of $6,193 and making minimum payments, you're not just paying back what you borrowed. At today's average interest rate of 22.63%, that debt will cost you over $13,000 in just 5 years if you only make minimum payments. That's more than double your original spending. But here's what's truly fascinating and disturbing. Ever wonder why 35% of Americans carry credit card balances month to month despite thinking they're good with money? The answer involves some sneaky psychological tricks that make even financially savvy people spend more than they would with cash. Credit card companies have mastered the art of psychological manipulation, particularly targeting middle-class consumers. They sell you on the concept of enhanced purchasing power. But what they're really offering is the illusion of wealth. That shiny card doesn't actually make you richer. It just disconnects you from the pain of spending. This disconnect is powerful. Research shows that even when using credit cards responsibly, people typically spend 10 to 15% more than they would using cash. That's not an accident, it's by design. When you swipe a card, you don't experience the same psychological loss you feel when handing over physical cash. Your brain doesn't register the spending in the same way. Think about the last time you went out to dinner with a credit card versus with only cash in your wallet. With the card, you might add an appetizer, maybe upgrade your drink, or splurge on dessert. With cash only, you're much more likely to stick to your budget because you physically see your money diminishing. Credit card companies have built their entire business model around this psychological hack. They know that by removing the immediate pain of payment, they can increase your spending, which increases their profits. They're not evil. They're just incredibly good at understanding human psychology and leveraging it for profit. What's particularly insidious is how many Americans believe they're good with credit while still carrying balances. There's a cognitive dissonance happening. We tell ourselves we're financially responsible while simultaneously paying hundreds or thousands in interest charges each year. The financial industry has normalized this behavior to the point where carrying debt feels like standard operating procedure rather than a wealth-destroying habit. So how do you break free from this trap? Let's talk about some proven strategies. First, you need to understand there are two popular methods for eliminating credit card debt: the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. Each addresses a different aspect of the debt problem. The debt snowball method has you paying off your smallest debts first, regardless of interest rate. This gives you quick psychological wins as you completely eliminate individual debts. Those early successes create momentum and motivation to keep going. The psychological boost from crossing debts off your list one by one can be powerful, especially if you've struggled with debt for a long time. The debt avalanche method, on the other hand, is mathematically superior. You tackle your highest interest debts first, which saves you the most money in the long run. While you may not get the quick wins of the snowball method, you'll pay less interest overall. Which method should you choose? It depends on your personal psychology. If you need the motivation of early wins to stay on track, the snowball method might work better for you despite being mathematically less efficient. If you're naturally disciplined and motivated by optimal efficiency, the avalanche approach will save you more money. Another powerful strategy is using balance transfers strategically. This involves moving high-interest debt to a new card with a promotional 0% APR offer for a limited time. Used correctly, this can save you hundreds or even thousands in interest charges while you work to pay down the principal. But there are pitfalls with balance transfers that credit card companies don't advertise. First, most balance transfers come with fees, typically 3 to 5% of the transferred amount. On that average, $6,193. Debt, you're looking at $185 to $310 in transfer fees. Second, if you don't pay off the balance during the promotional period, the interest rate often jumps to an even higher rate than you had before. For balance transfers to work, you need a clear payoff plan. Take the promotional period, let's say 15 months, and divide your total debt by that number. That's how much you need to pay each month to zero out the debt before the high interest kicks in. Mark the end date on your calendar and set up automatic payments to ensure you never miss the deadline. Now let's get tactical about breaking free from credit card debt permanently with a step-by-step system. Step 1. Stop the bleeding. Cut up your cards or freeze them in a block of ice if you need a physical barrier. Remove saved card information from online shopping sites. Create friction between you and spending. Step 2. Get real about your numbers. List every card, its balance, interest rate, and minimum payment. Seeing the full picture is essential for creating an effective plan. Step 3. Choose your method, snowball or avalanche, based on your personal psychology and what will keep you motivated. Step 4. Create a dedicated debt payoff fund. This is money that goes directly to paying down debt above minimum payments. Even an extra $100 a month can dramatically speed up your timeline. Step 5. Consider balance transfers strategically, but only if you have a clear plan to pay off the debt during the promotional period. Step 6. Address the psychological aspects of spending. Start using cash for discretionary spending to rebuild awareness of what things actually cost. Studies show this alone can reduce spending by 10 to 15%. Step 7. Create a 24-hour rule for purchases over a certain amount. This cooling off period helps combat impulsive spending triggered by retailers' psychological tactics. Step 8. Track your progress visually. Create a debt thermometer or chart that you update regularly. Seeing the debt decrease reinforces your new habits. Remember, eliminating credit card debt isn't just about the numbers. It's equally about rewiring your psychological relationship with spending. Credit card companies have spent billions perfecting ways to separate you from your money. Your counter strategy must address both the mathematical and psychological aspects of the problem. Barrier number 4, the education burden, breaking free from $37,338 in student loans. Think student loans are just another bill to pay each month? The truth is far more insidious. Nearly $1.75 trillion in total student debt doesn't just sit quietly in the background of American life. It actively reshapes careers, delays major milestones, and fundamentally alters the risk tolerance of an entire generation. But what if there are escape routes hiding in plain sight that nobody's telling you about? Let's talk about how education went from being the ultimate investment to becoming the ultimate financial shackle. The average federal student loan debt has ballooned to nearly $37,850 per borrower, a number that's tripled since 2007. This isn't just a statistic. It's a weight dragging down millions of Americans who did exactly what they were told would lead to success. The most devastating impact isn't the monthly payment itself. It's the invisible opportunity cost. Student loans delay wealth-building milestones by an average of 7 to 13 years compared to debt-free peers. Think about that. While your classmate who graduated debt-free might buy their first home at 27, you might be waiting until your late 30s. They could be maxing out retirement accounts while you're still throwing hundreds every month at loans. That's not just a financial difference. It's a fundamental reshaping of life trajectories. The psychological burden is equally crushing. When you're carrying tens of thousands in student debt, every career decision becomes filtered through that lens. Passionate about starting a business? That entrepreneurial spirit gets smothered when you have loan servicers expecting payment every month. Dream job pays less but offers more fulfillment? Sorry, those loans don't care about your happiness. Student debt creates a risk-averse mindset that pushes many borrowers toward the safest, highest-paying options rather than the most personally or socially rewarding paths. Women and black borrowers face even steeper climbs. 12 months after graduation, 71% of women still carry student loans compared to 64% of men. The racial wealth gap extends into education debt too, with black borrowers facing a median debt of $26,000 compared to $25,000 for white borrowers. These disparities compound the already challenging burden of student loans. But here's what loan servicers don't want you to realize. The system is deliberately complex to keep you paying more than necessary. Let's break down the 3 most powerful escape strategies. First, federal loan borrowers need to understand income-driven repayment plans. These programs cap your monthly payments at a percentage of your discretionary income, sometimes as low as 10%. If your income is low relative to your debt, this could dramatically reduce your monthly obligation. The newest plan, Save, saving on a valuable education, can even result in $0 monthly payments for some borrowers while still counting toward forgiveness. Yet thousands of eligible borrowers never apply because they don't know these options exist. Second, loan forgiveness isn't just a political talking point. It's a real option for many borrowers right now. Public service loan forgiveness eliminates remaining federal student loan debt after 10 years of qualifying payments while working in government or nonprofit sectors. Teacher loan forgiveness offers up to $17,500 for teachers in low-income schools. Even standard income-driven repayment plans offer forgiveness after 20 to 25 years of payments. The catch: you must understand the exact requirements and submit the correct paperwork. Mistakes can reset your progress. Third, strategic refinancing can save thousands, but timing is everything. When interest rates drop, refinancing federal loans to private loans can lower your rate and monthly payment. However, this permanently removes access to federal benefits like income-driven plans and forgiveness options. The ideal candidate for refinancing has a stable, high income, excellent credit, and isn't pursuing forgiveness. For everyone else, the flexibility of federal protections often outweighs the potential interest savings. Not all education debt carries equal value in today's economy. The harsh reality is that some degrees simply don't provide enough return on investment to justify their cost. Engineering, computer science, nursing, and other STEM fields typically offer starting salaries that make loan repayment manageable. Meanwhile, graduates with degrees in some humanities fields or from for-profit institutions often struggle with debt-to-income ratios that make financial progress nearly impossible. This isn't to discourage pursuing your passions. It's about making informed decisions. If you're considering additional education, calculate the true ROI by researching realistic starting salaries in your field and comparing them to potential debt. Sometimes, alternative education paths make more financial sense. Coding boot camps, trade schools, certifications, and community colleges often provide substantial earning potential at a fraction of the cost of traditional 4-year degrees. For those already carrying student debt, accelerated payoff strategies can shave years off your repayment timeline. The debt avalanche method, targeting highest interest loans first while making minimum payments on others, mathematically saves the most money. The debt snowball approach, paying off smallest balances first for psychological wins, keeps motivation high. Either strategy works better than minimum payments, which maximize the time your money flows to loan servicers rather than building your wealth. Consider the power of small additional payments. Adding just $100 extra per month to a $37,850 loan at 5% interest cuts nearly 3 years off the standard 10-year repayment plan and saves over $3,400 in interest. That's money that could be funding your first home down payment or retirement account instead of padding loan servicer profits. If you're struggling with payments, don't wait until you're in default to take action. Contact your loan servicer immediately to discuss options. For federal loans, deferment and forbearance can temporarily pause payments during financial hardship, though interest may continue accruing. Income-driven plans can adjust your payment to as little as $0 during periods of low income. Taking proactive steps preserves your credit score and keeps more repayment options available. Attacking student loans effectively requires a dual approach: mathematical strategy and psychological management. Mathematically, focus on highest interest debt first, make more than minimum payments whenever possible, and explore refinancing when it makes sense. Psychologically, celebrate small wins, visualize the freedom waiting on the other side of debt, and remember that your worth isn't defined by your debt balance. Many borrowers feel trapped by their education debt, but with the right approach, you can minimize its impact on your broader financial goals. While eliminating the debt, continue building emergency savings and contributing at least enough to retirement accounts to capture employer matches. This balanced approach prevents student loans from completely derailing your wealth-building journey. Barrier number 5, lifestyle inflation, the raise that makes you poorer. Freedom from student debt is just the beginning of your wealth journey. But beware the next trap that's disguised as success. The most dangerous financial barrier doesn't strike when you're down. It attacks precisely when you're celebrating that promotion or raise. This financial paradox explains why so many people who make $100,000 plus still feel broke, while others build real wealth on half that income. Have you ever noticed how quickly that exciting pay increase seems to vanish from your bank account? You're not alone. This phenomenon has a name: lifestyle inflation. It's the silent wealth killer that grows stronger as your income rises. What makes lifestyle inflation so dangerous is its timing. It strikes at moments of financial victory, exactly when you think you're getting ahead. Picture this: you receive a $10,000 raise. After taxes, that's about $7,000 more per year, or roughly $580 per month. But instead of seeing your bank balance grow, you find yourself upgrading your apartment, leasing a nicer car, or subscribing to premium services. Before you know it, not only have you spent the entire raise, but you've actually created new financial obligations that exceed what you've earned. The math is sobering. Research shows that when our income increases, our spending typically jumps by 10 to 20%, often exceeding the actual raise. This creates a bizarre situation where higher earners frequently save a smaller percentage of their income than those making substantially less. You can actually become poorer while earning more. Why does this happen? Psychologically, we feel we deserve better things when our income rises. This mindset is particularly powerful because it doesn't feel wrong. It feels like a natural reward for your hard work. After all, isn't this why you worked for that promotion? But this psychological reward comes with a mathematical penalty that compounds over decades. Consider two professionals starting with identical $60,000 salaries. Both receive consistent 5% raises throughout their careers. The first allows lifestyle inflation to consume each raise, while the second limits lifestyle upgrades to half of each raise and invests the rest. After 20 years, the second person has not only built substantial wealth, but also enjoyed meaningful lifestyle improvements. Meanwhile, the first person, despite earning the same income, has accumulated minimal savings while creating expense patterns that make it increasingly difficult to ever catch up. What makes lifestyle inflation particularly insidious is how it escalates. It starts with small, seemingly harmless upgrades: that premium coffee subscription, the slightly nicer apartment, the more expensive restaurant choices. But these small changes establish new baselines for what feels normal, creating a foundation for larger upgrades later. Soon, those small changes compound into major financial commitments. The slight apartment upgrade eventually becomes a much larger mortgage. The occasional premium dining experience transforms into regular high-end meals. Before long, you're living a lifestyle that requires your entire current income, leaving nothing for your future self. This pattern creates what financial experts call golden handcuffs, where your lifestyle becomes so expensive that you're essentially trapped in your current income situation, unable to make career changes or take risks because you've built financial obligations that match or exceed your income. But there's a better approach than either restricting yourself to permanent frugality or surrendering to unchecked lifestyle inflation. It's called conscious spending, and it's about being intentional with how you allocate income increases. Conscious spending means deliberately deciding which areas of your life deserve more financial resources and which don't meaningfully improve your happiness. It recognizes that not all spending increases lead to greater satisfaction. Studies show that spending on experiences, like travel, learning opportunities, or social activities, typically yields higher life satisfaction compared to material purchases. Yet many people instinctively direct their income increases toward more expensive material goods that fail to deliver lasting happiness. A practical framework for managing lifestyle inflation is the 50/30/20 budgeting rule, which suggests allocating 50% of income to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings. The key is maintaining these proportions as your income grows. If you earn $5,000 monthly, you'd allocate $2,500 to needs, $1,500 to wants, and $1,000 to savings. After receiving a $1,000 monthly raise, instead of expanding your lifestyle by the full amount, you'd maintain the same proportions. $3,000 to needs, $1,800 to wants, and $1,200 to savings. This approach allows you to enjoy meaningful lifestyle improvements while simultaneously accelerating your wealth building. Your wants budget increases by $300 monthly, enough to enhance your quality of life, while your savings grow by $200 monthly, dramatically improving your financial future. The most powerful strategy for controlling lifestyle inflation is creating automatic systems that capture raises before they hit your checking account. When you receive a raise, immediately adjust your automatic transfers to redirect a portion, ideally 50% or more, to investment accounts, debt repayment, or specific savings goals. This ensures you benefit from the raise both now and in the future. Another effective approach is implementing a 30-day waiting period for lifestyle upgrades after receiving income increases. This cooling-off period allows the initial excitement to subside, letting you evaluate potential upgrades more objectively. Ask yourself, will this upgrade genuinely improve my daily life a month from now? 6 months from now? A year from now? Remember that true financial progress feels different than most people expect. It's not about the constant excitement of new purchases. It's about the growing sense of security and options as your wealth accumulates. This is the paradox that trips up so many high earners. The behaviors that create temporary happiness often undermine the foundation for lasting financial well-being. Consider creating a lifestyle upgrade fund, a separate account specifically for intentional lifestyle improvements. Each time you receive a raise, bonus, or windfall, allocate a predetermined percentage to this fund while directing the majority toward wealth building. This gives you permission to enjoy meaningful upgrades without derailing your financial progress. But how do you determine which lifestyle upgrades are worth the investment? Research in happiness economics provides some guidance. Studies consistently show that spending that saves time, reduces stress, improves health, deepens relationships, or creates meaningful experiences tends to deliver the most satisfaction per dollar. Conversely, spending motivated primarily by status or comparison with others typically yields minimal happiness returns. The approach is remarkably simple but requires intentionality. When your income increases, deliberately decide what percentage will improve your present lifestyle and what percentage will secure your future. For most people, capturing at least 50% of each raise for wealth building provides the optimal balance. Investment hesitation, enjoyment, why 39% of Americans avoid the stock market. While saving half your raises is powerful, there's a financial bomb ticking for the 39% of Americans who avoid the stock market completely. Ever wonder why some people work their entire lives but never build real wealth, while others seem to effortlessly grow their money? The answer isn't about how much they earn. It's about where they put what they save. This wealth gap becomes even more striking when we look at who's investing. Only 29% of households earning under $40,000 own stocks, compared to a whopping 84% of those making over $100,000. This isn't just an income issue. It's an opportunity gap that compounds over decades. Let's get real about what this hesitation costs. Imagine putting just $100 a month into an index fund averaging 7% returns over 30 years. That modest contribution would grow to approximately $100,000. Now imagine that same money sitting in a savings account, or worse, being spent. The difference is staggering. And with the stock market's average annual return hovering around 10% in 2024, many Americans are missing out on substantial growth potential. So why do so many people avoid investing? The psychological barriers are real and powerful. First, there's the fear factor. Market volatility can be terrifying, especially if you've witnessed major crashes like 2008 or the pandemic plunge in 2020. Every dramatic dip gets headline news, while steady growth rarely makes the evening broadcast. Then there's the complexity barrier. Wall Street has created this perception that investing requires specialized knowledge, fancy degrees, and constant attention to market movements. Have you noticed how financial experts use confusing jargon that makes you feel like you need a dictionary just to understand what they're saying? This isn't accidental. The financial industry benefits when investing seems complicated. Many would-be investors also face the paralysis of choice. With thousands of stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, bonds, and other options, figuring out where to start feels overwhelming. Should you pick individual stocks? What about crypto? Real estate? Gold? The options seem endless, and the fear of making the wrong choice keeps many people from making any choice at all. What most people don't realize is that investing can actually be remarkably simple. Enter the concept of lazy portfolios, streamlined investment approaches that require minimal effort but deliver impressive results. These portfolios typically consist of a small collection of diversified index funds that cover the entire market. Here's where it gets really interesting. These simple approaches consistently outperform the professionals. Studies show that over a 15-year period, approximately 80% of actively managed funds failed to beat their benchmark index. That's right, the experts with all their research, algorithms, and high fees couldn't match what you could do with a basic index fund. Why do simple approaches win? Two main reasons: lower fees and emotion-free investing. When you're paying 1 to 2% in management fees for active funds versus 0.1% for index funds, that difference compounds dramatically over time. And unlike human fund managers who might panic sell during downturns or chase hot trends, index funds simply follow the market's natural long-term upward trajectory. The best part, you can start with surprisingly little money. Many platforms now offer fractional shares, meaning you can begin investing with just $100 or less. You don't need to wait until you have thousands saved up. In fact, starting small and consistently is far more powerful than waiting to invest a larger amount later. Here's a simple step-by-step process to break through investment hesitation. First, focus on accessibility by choosing a user-friendly investment platform. Companies like Vanguard, Fidelity, and low-cost brokers have made setting up accounts easier than ever. Many require no minimum investment and offer commission-free trades on index funds and ETFs. Second, start with a single broad market index fund like an S&P 500 ETF. This one fund instantly diversifies your money across 500 of America's largest companies, giving you ownership in household names like Apple, Amazon, and Johnson & Johnson with a single purchase. Third, automate your contributions. Even $50 or $100 per month, automatically transferred from your checking account, will grow substantially over time. This set-it-and-forget-it approach removes the emotion and willpower from the equation. Fourth, adopt a long-term perspective. The stock market has historically rewarded patient investors who stay the course through temporary downturns. When the market drops, see it as stocks being on sale rather than a reason to panic. Finally, increase your contributions gradually. As you become more comfortable with investing, try to increase your monthly contribution by 1% every few months. Small, incremental changes add up to big differences over time. Remember that investment education doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to understand complex financial theories or read the Wall Street Journal daily to be a successful investor. Focus on understanding just a few key concepts. Diversification, not putting all your eggs in one basket, keeping costs low, consistent contributions, and staying invested for the long term. If you're worried about market downturns, consider this perspective shift. Volatility is actually the price you pay for higher returns. Without the occasional downs, you wouldn't get the long-term UPS that makes stock market investing so powerful. Since 1928, the S&P 500 has delivered positive returns in about 75% of calendar years. Those are pretty favorable odds. Start seeing investing as buying actual pieces of businesses rather than just numbers on a screen. When you own an S&P 500 index fund, you literally own small portions of hundreds of real companies with real products, services, and profits. These businesses have tangible value that tends to increase over time as they grow and innovate. For those who want to take a slightly more hands-on approach without getting overwhelmed, consider a simple 3-fund portfolio. A U.S. total market index fund, an international stock index fund, and a bond index fund. By adjusting the percentages between these 3 funds, you can customize your risk level while maintaining broad diversification. The key to successful investing isn't about timing the market perfectly or finding the next hot stock. It's about creating a system that works with human psychology rather than against it. Automate your investments, ignore the daily market noise, and think in decades rather than days or months. When you look at the evidence, the investment approach that gives you the highest probability of success is also the simplest. Regular contributions to low-cost index funds held for the long term. Not coincidentally, this is also the approach that requires the least amount of your time and attention. Barrier number 7. The financial literacy gap, joining the 34% who understand money. Those simple, powerful investment principles might be clear to you now, but here's the sobering reality. Only 34% of Americans can correctly answer basic financial literacy questions. The other 66% are essentially navigating their financial lives blindfolded. Ever wonder why so many hardworking people make money decisions that seem irrational? It's not stupidity. It's a knowledge gap that costs the average American over $1,200 each year in unnecessary fees, missed opportunities, and avoidable mistakes. This financial literacy crisis isn't accidental. As financial products have grown increasingly complex, comprehensive financial education has quietly disappeared from most school curriculums. Think about it. We require students to dissect Shakespeare, but don't teach them how to read a credit card statement or calculate compound interest. It's as if we're sending young adults into a financial battlefield armed with nothing but a calculator and wishful thinking. The consequences of this knowledge gap are staggering. Gen Z shows the lowest financial literacy rates of any generation, with just 38% answering financial literacy questions correctly. Even millennials only manage 45% correct responses. Nearly half of all American adults, 47% to be exact, give their personal finance knowledge a grade of C or worse, and they're right to be concerned. Let me show you how seemingly small knowledge gaps create massive wealth differences over time. Imagine 2 people with identical incomes. One understands how interest compounds, but doesn't grasp proper asset allocation. The other knows basic investment principles, but doesn't fully comprehend how debt works. Fast forward 20 years, they'll likely have wildly different net worths, not because of income differences, but because of knowledge gaps that led to completely different financial decisions. Financial literacy isn't distributed equally across income levels either. Only 28% of Americans earning less than $25,000 annually are financially literate, compared to 58% of those making over $100,000. This creates a vicious cycle where those who need financial knowledge most have the least access to it, perpetuating wealth inequality. Let's break down the 5 core areas of financial literacy where most people struggle. First, borrowing and debt management. This is actually where Americans score highest, with about 58% understanding concepts like interest rates and loan terms. But that still leaves 42% making potentially disastrous borrowing decisions. Second, risk comprehension. Only 35% of Americans correctly understand risk concepts. Many either avoid all investment risk, missing growth opportunities, or take on excessive risk without understanding the potential consequences. Third, insurance and protection. Most people significantly underprotect or overinsure themselves simply because they don't understand how insurance actually works or what types they truly need. Fourth, saving and investing basics. Many Americans don't understand the difference between saving and investing or how inflation erodes purchasing power over time. Fifth, income management, budgeting, tax planning, and cash flow strategies remain a mystery to millions, leading to constant financial stress despite decent incomes. Which of these areas makes you uncomfortable? Being honest about your knowledge gaps is the first step toward fixing them. Traditional financial education often fails because it's delivered all wrong. Most programs dump theoretical knowledge on people without connecting it to immediate action. It's like teaching someone to swim by having them read a book about water, then wondering why they sink when pushed into a pool. This is why just-in-time financial learning is quickly becoming the gold standard for effective financial education. Unlike traditional approaches that try to teach everything at once, just-in-time learning focuses on acquiring specific knowledge right when you need to apply it. For example, rather than taking a comprehensive course on every aspect of personal finance, you'd learn about mortgage options specifically when you're ready to buy a home, or investment strategies when you're setting up your first retirement account. This approach dramatically increases retention and application because you're learning with immediate purpose. The good news is that quality financial education is more accessible than ever before. The National Foundation for Credit Counseling provides free financial education and counseling for those struggling with debt or budgeting. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau offers excellent resources including budgeting tools and financial literacy courses designed for everyday Americans. What's fascinating is that 85% of Americans say they would take a personal finance course if it were available and offered credit toward their degree. The desire to learn exists. It's the accessible, practical education that's been missing. Let me introduce a 30-day financial literacy challenge that focuses on practical application rather than theory. Unlike typical financial education that overwhelms you with information, this approach builds knowledge through direct action. Days 1 to 5. Track every penny you spend to establish a baseline understanding of your cash flow. This simple act immediately increases your financial awareness without requiring any special knowledge. Days 6 to 10. Review one financial statement each day, checking account, credit card, investment account, etc., and identify one fee or charge you don't understand. Research just that specific item until you fully comprehend it. Days 11 to 15. Take the PFIN Index assessment to identify your specific knowledge gaps. Then choose just one area to focus on for the remainder of the challenge. Days 16 to 20. Find and follow 2 to 3 quality financial resources, podcasts, YouTube channels, blogs that specifically address your knowledge gap area. Commit to 15 minutes daily of focused learning. Days 21 to 25. Apply one new concept you've learned to your actual finances. Make a single concrete change based on your new knowledge. Days 26 to 30. Share what you've learned with someone else. Teaching reinforces learning and helps build financial conversations into your relationships. The beauty of this approach is that it builds financial literacy through direct application rather than passive consumption of information. You're not just learning about money. You're actively improving your relationship with it one small step at a time. Remember, the goal isn't to become a financial expert. It's to develop practical financial literacy that actually changes your behavior and decisions. You don't need to understand the intricacies of options trading or be able to analyze financial statements like Warren Buffett. You just need to know enough to make intentional choices that align with your goals and avoid costly mistakes. Think of financial literacy like learning to drive. You don't need to be a mechanical engineer to operate a car safely. You just need to understand the basics and know when to call a professional. Similarly, you don't need to become a financial advisor to manage your money effectively. You just need enough knowledge to navigate your financial life and recognize when you need expert help. The most powerful aspect of improving your financial literacy is how it changes your relationship with money. When you understand how financial systems actually work, money transforms from an emotional stress point to a practical tool. Decisions become clearer, anxiety decreases, and your confidence grows with each informed choice. Designing your escape plan, breaking the chains in the right order. Armed with financial knowledge, you're now ready to break free. But here's where most people get stuck, tackling their financial barriers in the wrong order. It's like trying to escape a set of chains by picking the wrong lock first. You might end up wasting precious time and energy only to find yourself more trapped than when you started. There's actually a strategic sequence to financial freedom, and getting it right can be the difference between frustration and forward momentum. Consider this. Studies show that people who approach their financial challenges randomly are significantly more likely to abandon their goals entirely. It's not just about knowing which barriers exist. It's about knowing which one to break first. Let me introduce you to Michael, a graphic designer earning $62,000 annually. When he decided to get serious about his finances, he immediately focused on paying off his mortgage faster. It seemed like the responsible thing to do, attack his biggest debt. But 6 months later, he found himself in credit card debt after an unexpected car repair, with no emergency fund to cover it. Despite making extra mortgage payments, his overall financial position had actually worsened. Michael's story illustrates a crucial principle. Tackling financial barriers in the wrong sequence can set you back years. Had he built an emergency fund first, he could have weathered that car repair without sliding backward. This is where the concept of financial leverage points becomes powerful. These are strategic actions that create disproportionate positive results in your financial life. For example, focusing on high-interest debt before low-interest debt frees up cash flow more quickly, creating a cascade effect that accelerates your progress toward other goals. The optimal sequence generally follows what I call the 3 phases of financial liberation: stabilization, acceleration, and transformation. The stabilization phase focuses on creating a solid foundation. This typically means 1. Building a starter emergency fund, just $1,000 to $2,000 initially. 2. Tackling high-interest consumer debt. 3. Establishing basic insurance coverage. 4. Creating a simple spending plan. Without this foundation, you'll constantly find yourself taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Think of stabilization as stopping the bleeding before trying to heal the wound. Once stabilized, you enter the acceleration phase, where you 1. Complete your full emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. 2. Maximize retirement contributions, especially employer matches. 3. Begin investing in index funds. 4. Develop your first additional income stream. This acceleration phase is where you start building real momentum. Each step creates more resources for the next step, like a financial snowball rolling downhill. Finally, the transformation phase allows you to 1. Pursue more sophisticated investment strategies. 2. Develop multiple income streams. 3. Address lower interest debts strategically. 4. Build generational wealth and charitable giving. But here's the critical insight. Your optimal sequence may differ based on your unique situation. That's why I've developed what I call the Financial Freedom Calculator, a tool that helps you identify which barriers to tackle first based on your specific circumstances. For instance, someone with crushing credit card debt at 22% interest might need to prioritize that debt even before building a full emergency fund. The math simply makes more sense. Meanwhile, someone with manageable debt but no retirement savings might need to focus first on capturing their employer's 401k match. An immediate 50 to 100% return is too valuable to delay. Let me walk you through how to determine your sequence. First, identify your biggest financial pain point, the one that keeps you up at night. While this isn't always mathematically optimal to address first, psychological momentum matters. If student loan anxiety is paralyzing you, addressing it directly might be necessary before you can focus on other areas. Second, look for quick wins that create immediate breathing room. Case studies consistently show that individuals who create small successes early are more likely to stick with their financial plan long-term. If you can eliminate a small debt in 60 days, that psychological win might fuel you through tougher challenges ahead. Third, analyze which barrier is creating the biggest mathematical drag on your finances. This is pure numbers. Which problem, if solved, would free up the most resources? For many, this is high-interest debt, but it could also be tax inefficiencies or under-earning in your career. Fourth, evaluate which barriers can be addressed simultaneously versus sequentially. Some financial challenges can be tackled in parallel, like improving your financial literacy while building an emergency fund. Others need to be addressed in order, like stabilizing your spending before attempting to increase your savings rate. This brings us to the concept of the minimum effective dose in personal finance. Just as in medicine, where you want the smallest dose that achieves the desired effect, financial freedom requires focusing on the smallest actions that yield the greatest results. For example, automating just 5% of your income into savings creates consistent progress without requiring complex budgeting strategies. Setting up automatic debt payments at just $100 above the minimum can slash years off your repayment timeline without feeling overwhelming. The goal isn't to do everything at once. It's to take the most leveraged actions in the right sequence. Let me share another case study. Elena, a nurse practitioner with $42,000 in student loans and $8,000 in credit card debt. Conventional wisdom might suggest tackling the larger student loan debt first. However, by focusing on her high-interest credit cards first, she freed up $300 in monthly cash flow within 8 months. This gave her the breathing room to build an emergency fund, which prevented her from accumulating new debt when her car needed repairs. With this foundation in place, she could then address her student loans more strategically through an income-driven repayment plan. The key insight from Elena's story is that she created a foundation of financial stability before attempting more ambitious goals. She used financial leverage points, focusing on high-impact actions first, to create a domino effect that made each subsequent step easier. Your personalized financial liberation plan should follow this strategic approach. Start by identifying which phase you're in: stabilization, acceleration, or transformation. Then determine the specific barriers that are holding you back within that phase. Finally, prioritize tackling those barriers based on both mathematical impact and psychological momentum. Remember that this isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Even taking small, consistent steps in the right sequence will yield dramatically better results than large, 30-day financial freedom challenge. Small, consistent steps are great, but what happens when you supercharge them with laser-focused intensity for just 30 days? While 36% of Americans have more credit card debt than emergency savings, I've seen people completely flip this situation in a single month with the right system. That's exactly what our 30-day financial freedom challenge is designed to do. Create massive momentum by focusing intensely on breaking just one financial barrier at a time. Let's be honest about why most financial plans fail. It's not because people don't have the information. It's because they try to change everything at once, get overwhelmed, and give up. This challenge is different because it applies the ADDIE Framework to your specific situation and focuses on just one barrier at a time. Here's how the challenge works. First, you'll identify your most limiting financial barrier, the one that's creating the biggest bottleneck in your financial progress. For many, that might be the lack of emergency savings or high-interest debt. Then, you'll commit to taking one small action every day for 30 days to break through that barrier. What makes this approach powerful is that each action is designed to take less than 15 minutes. We're not asking you to transform your entire financial life overnight. We're asking you to commit just 15 minutes daily to create dramatic results through consistency. Let's break down what this looks like week by week. In week 1, you'll focus on analysis and preparation. You'll identify your specific barrier, set a clear 30-day goal, and prepare your environment for success. This might mean downloading a budgeting app, setting up automatic transfers, or simply clearing space in your schedule for your daily financial action. During week 2, you'll implement daily micro-actions that directly tackle your barrier. If you're building emergency savings, you might review one spending category each day to find potential savings. If you're tackling credit card debt, you might make one phone call daily to negotiate interest rates or implement one spending change that frees up cash for extra payments. Week 3 is where many people typically hit resistance, so we intensify accountability and celebrate small wins. You'll track your progress visually, share updates with an accountability partner, and acknowledge every small victory along the way. By week 4, you'll begin evaluating your results and adjusting your approach based on what's working. You'll also start planning how to maintain your progress beyond the 30-day challenge. Now, let's talk about measuring progress effectively. This challenge uses both leading and lagging indicators to track your success. Leading indicators measure your activities. Things like the number of days you stick to your action plan, the number of spending decisions you optimize, or the number of debt reduction calls you make. These are actions you control directly. Lagging indicators measure your results, the actual amount saved, debt reduced, or financial knowledge gained. While these numbers matter, they often take time to show significant change. That's why focusing on leading indicators, especially in the beginning, is so important for maintaining motivation. For example, if your goal is building emergency savings, a leading indicator might be completed 30 days of expense tracking, while a lagging indicator would be saved $500 toward emergency fund. Both matter, but the leading indicator gives you immediate feedback on your progress. Accountability dramatically increases your chances of success. Research shows that sharing your financial goals with friends or family significantly enhances motivation and follow-through. When implementing this challenge, I recommend using at least 2 accountability methods. First, find a challenge partner, someone who's also working on a financial goal. Schedule weekly 15-minute check-ins to share progress and obstacles. Second, use visual tracking by marking each day you complete your action on a calendar. Breaking a visible streak becomes psychologically difficult, encouraging consistency. Third, consider joining an online community focused on financial improvement where you can share anonymous progress updates and get encouragement from others on the same journey. One powerful technique for making financial changes stick is habit stacking. This involves linking your new financial habit to an existing routine. For example, you might check your spending tracker right after your morning coffee, review your budget while waiting for dinner to cook, or transfer money to savings immediately after receiving a paycheck. By connecting new financial behaviors to established routines, you reduce the mental friction that often prevents consistent action. Your brain already has neural pathways for your existing habits. You're simply adding a financial action to a path your mind already travels. Regularly, as you progress through the 30-day challenge, you'll need a framework to evaluate what's working and what needs adjustment. Each week, ask yourself 3 simple questions. What's going well? What obstacles am I facing? What one thing can I adjust to improve my results? This continuous improvement approach prevents small setbacks from derailing your progress. Perhaps you're finding it difficult to remember your daily financial action. That's a sign you need to integrate habit stacking or set up better reminders. Maybe you're consistently taking action, but not seeing the expected results. That might indicate you need to adjust the specific actions you're taking. Remember that this challenge isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Even completing 20 out of 30 days puts you significantly ahead of where you started. The goal is improvement, not flawless execution. I've seen remarkable transformations happen in just 30 days. Consider the example of someone who focused on building an emergency fund. By tracking expenses daily, identifying 3 subscription services they weren't using, bringing lunch from home 3 days a week, and implementing 2 additional saving strategies, they managed to save their first $1,000 in emergency funds, something they had tried and failed to do for years. The key was breaking down the overwhelming goal of build emergency savings into specific daily actions that required minimal time but created compound results. What makes this 30-day approach so effective is that it creates both immediate wins and lasting habits. By focusing intensely on one barrier for 30 days, you'll likely see tangible progress that motivates further action. And by implementing the habit stacking technique, you'll establish sustainable patterns that continue working for you long after the challenge ends. The most exciting part? Once you break through your first financial barrier, the next ones become easier to tackle. Success creates confidence, and confidence creates momentum. Many people find that after completing one 30-day challenge, they're eager to take on another barrier with the same focused approach. This is where your journey to financial freedom truly begins. Did you know that 56% of Americans couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency from savings? You don't have to be part of that statistic anymore. The path ahead isn't just about building wealth. It's about reclaiming your future from a system designed to keep you financially contained. The financial barriers we've discussed aren't random obstacles. They're systemic challenges that millions face. But now you have the tools to break free. With credit card debt averaging $6,193 per household, many remain trapped in cycles of financial stress. You can be different. Your next step is simple. Take the financial barrier assessment in the description below. It's your roadmap to identifying which chain to break first. Remember, there are countless resources available, online platforms and community programs, all designed to support your journey to financial independence. This isn't just about money. It's about taking